Hey, welcome back to Recovery Corner. We are your host, Candace Rose.
And I am Jesse Hayner.
Today, we would like to welcome Julia Pratt to the show. On today's episode, we are going to hear the recovery experience from her. Julia is a singer-songwriter with an enchanting voice who has been drawing inspiration from her experiences with substance use disorder and the events that led her down that path. So she's sharing her story in such a beautiful way through the music she creates, and she's joined us today to tell us a little bit more about herself and the artist she has become. Thanks for being with us today, Julia.
Yes.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm thrilled. I've been exploring your music, and what I found, there's not a ton, but the singles that are out, I mean, your voice is incredible. The music is just beautiful.
It is. I listened to some songs, and I think you're on the keyboard. I forget what song it was, but really, really good tone. She's kind of got, like I said, Amy Winehouse swag. It's just different. It's unique. It's beautiful. And, you're going to be famous one day. Don't forget us small people. Don't forget this small podcast from YPR. And just remember, we were here from the beginning. So, but Julia, thanks for being here. We really appreciate it. Like Candace said, I'm excited to hear your story and, what music has done with you and for you. I guess we could start there, Candace. We'll just kind of give it to you, Julia, and tell us about yourself, where you're from, and kind of a little bit of a background, and we'll just go from there.
Yeah, for sure. So my name is Julia. I am 21. I am a singer-songwriter. I'm a student. I go to Berkeley. I am a, daughter, sister, friend. I've been in recovery for about 2.5 years now. And so I'm originally from Philly. I live in LA right now, but I've always kind of moved around my whole childhood and I guess young adult life up until now. So I consider Philly to be home, though. So, that's kind of the basics about me.
I got to stop you just real quick. My own curiosity, is Rocky that big in Philly, or do you guys hate it?
Honestly, kind of far removed from that. It's so funny. Whenever I meet anyone and tell them I'm from Philly, they bring up like Rocky, cheesesteaks.
Yes.
And they're like, name like these 2 cheesesteaks places. Like, which one? I'm like,
yes.
I'm not that invested in that game.
I just have to know. I'm a California guy, but I'm an 80s baby, not to age myself, but I grew up with Rocky. So anytime I hear Philly, you probably get it a lot. Like, what's Rocky like? Like, I don't know. I don't know what Rocky's like. But anyway,
what's Charlie Day like?
Yeah.
It's
always sunny in Philadelphia. That's my show, which is filmed in California, by the way, which is crazy to me. So.
It's my favorite episode. I was going to say my favorite episode of that show is when they all get sober.
Yeah.
Doesn't last very long, but
it doesn't last very long. We love Charlie. Sorry, Julia, we just threw you off, so I just want to get out there. Julia from Philly, please continue.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the basics about me. I'm moving back in a few months. I could not be more excited. I miss the East Coast. But yeah, that's kind of it for me right now on that front.
Are you going to keep going to school? Are you going to do like online through Berkeley? Or are you going to transfer schools or just kind of like decide?
So I actually do Berkeley online anyway. They have like a whole online school since like 2002. So I'm just going to keep grinding on that.
Very
so you're going to Berkeley.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Very nice. So you got some NorCal roots. You see that? That's what's up.
This is Boston's Berkeley.
Oh, you said Berkeley, so I thought, my bad.
Yeah, no. You would not be the first. I need to start clarifying.
Okay, my bad. Just so you guys know, for those listening and watching, there was a Berkeley in Boston. So
just for those of you listening, Candace and Jesse did not go to college. We don't know these things.
That's a lie. I went for a semester. I took Psych 300. And 3 weeks passed, and my professor was like, hey, I thought I was doing good. I didn't know how school works. It's been years. And he was like, you haven't turned an assignment in yet. I'm like, what do you mean? Because we've had like 10 assignments. I didn't know you had to go on the computer link and get your homework. I was waiting for him to hand me a paper assignment. I'm old. So I just dropped out. I was like, I'm too far behind. School's not for me. And that was my college experience, but I'm officially went to college. Just so you guys know, I dropped out of Psych 300. The more you know. Okay. We suck.
No, we don't. We're just on a different path.
We're on a different path. It's all good.
You guys are doing good stuff with this podcast, so college doesn't matter.
Thank you, Julia. Thank you.
Yeah, it's gonna work out for us.
So, Julia, go ahead and. Sorry, Candace. We're growing. We are growing. We're gonna reach big levels soon. Theo Vaughn. Yes, Joe Rogan status. We're on the way for sure.
Yeah, so he's actually scheduled next.
Yeah, Joe's coming on next. That's for sure. He doesn't know, but he'll be here. So you're from Philly. Let's rewind. So you're from Philly. You grew up out there. Mm-hmm. Let's just start there. What was it like growing up? Was it a normal childhood, quote unquote normal? And kind of just talk about leading up to the events of your youth and whatever you want to talk about.
So I don't think I'd classify my childhood as like normal. I don't think anyone's childhood is really normal, but mine definitely was not. So I moved around pretty much every year or two for my mom's job. Up until I was 10, it was kind of moving around Pennsylvania. And then when I was 10, we ended up going overseas to China and then Vietnam. So I was there for a few years and then moved back to North Carolina and then went to boarding school. So I was kind of like all over the place, pre-active addiction in my late teens. But yeah, so I grew up, my mom, my dad, my sister, and I were like my little nuclear family in Philadelphia. But my dad was a pretty heavy drinker from like the time I can remember. And so I guess like substance abuse wise, I kind of grew up in that milieu with like active addiction all around me. But it didn't really like affect me consciously, I think, until probably my preteens when I was in Vietnam. I went to an international school and, Vietnam is just like so different than anywhere in the US. It's its own kind of
I can imagine. So your preteens are really develop wise, like it's a rough age. You're talking like 11, 12.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. So talk about Vietnam. What was that like?
I mean, I loved it. It was such a cool place to be at that point in my life. Like that was a cool age to be there. There was a lot of freedom, which, for some people didn't turn out too well. But I had a pretty good time. I went to a British international school when I was in China and in Vietnam. So I was kind of in that education system, which worked really well for me. So it was a good time outside of my home life, but that's also kind of the beginning of my substance use roots. There was a lot of uncontrolled substances and kind of, as I mentioned, like my dad was in active addiction for a lot of my childhood. And so he brought a lot of that into like my home, and my mom traveled a lot. So it was kind of like me and my dad and my sister were alone a lot. And it was around that age, migraines run in my family. So I started getting migraines, and my dad was able to get a hold of codeine, and he would start giving me codeine to help with my migraines. And at the time, I didn't even know what codeine was. I kind of thought it was like an Advil equivalent. All I knew is that I'd have a migraine 1 minute, take some codeine, 10 minutes later, I felt great. So I started using codeine pretty much every day, like literally having no idea what it was. And that lasted for probably about 8 months. And then we ended up having to leave Vietnam pretty quickly just because my mom transferred jobs. And suddenly there was no codeine. And I started going through withdrawals at like 13. And my parents thought I was dying because I was just like deathly ill and there was no explanation. And I couldn't put two and two together because I didn't really understand what had been happening. And so like, I didn't tell anyone like, oh, I was taking this stuff for my migraines. And then after 2 weeks, the withdrawals went away. And then like, we just never revisited it because there was kind of no reason to, but I think that was definitely like a switch had been turned on in my brain at that point. And all I knew was that like life was not as bright as it used to be. Right. And a few years later, that's when like my addiction really picked up.
Very interesting. Most of the time, I know it's a bad stigma, but like it is what it is. It's like the weeds first, and then it's the parties in high school or maybe eighth grade around there. some younger, some older, but you started off with a taste of substance use on a different format. It wasn't peer pressure. It wasn't social. It was brought to you for a physical element by your parents. And so that's a really different approach. And you got a taste of that young. And so now you're in your teens. And so are you still in Vietnam, or you're in China, or where?
Yeah, so by the time my codeine dependence kind of ended when I was 13, and I had just moved to North Carolina. So it was like 7th grade for me. And the rest of middle school was like fine on the substance abuse front. Like there was nothing out of the ordinary, but definitely like my home life was very tumultuous. Like my dad was like a tyrant. And so it was in 8th grade that I started applying to boarding schools for high school, because it was kind of like my mom and I were like, how do I get out of this situation? And so I ended up applying to a bunch, and I got into a boarding school in Boston. And after my 8th grade year, I went to Boston. And a lot of mental health struggles started to arise in me at that point, at like 15-ish. I started getting really, really, really depressed, which also a lot of mental illnesses run in my family. My dad is super depressed, a lot of anxiety in my family, and that all kind of came to a head. And I think it was the end of my freshman year, I was prescribed Xanax for the first time. And for a year, totally fine, used it as prescribed. And then junior year for me, that's when like my whole life blew up. And that's when my like really serious active addiction started, with Xanax.
So again, another prescribed drug that started off as needed. And so do you feel like at 16 you've started to abuse them, or you saw this increase? It went from like as needed to more social?
Actually, no. So the interesting thing about my drug experience is that I've never been a social user. It's always been isolated and by myself. It's this really kind of like almost shameful phenomenon. So like my sophomore year all through, I was using it as prescribed, no issues. And then my junior year of high school was just really rough for me. I started getting sexually abused by 2 of my classmates, and like just got really, really depressed, and I was struggling a lot with PTSD. People around me knew what was going on. Administrators knew. They just kept like shutting me down and like kind of punishing me for like speaking up about things. And I think my PTSD at that point was just so severe. Like I couldn't cope with being in reality. And so I started to use a little bit more, and then a little bit more. And then, suddenly taking the oral pill like wasn't working. I started snorting it to get it faster. And I was just high all the time because I couldn't cope. And then by the end of my junior year, I ended up, telling my mom what was happened. I was removed from that environment, but I was too far gone at that point. Like I couldn't stop using it because I would go through withdrawals. And I also couldn't stop using it because then I wouldn't be able to function. So it was just kind of like a really weird period of time. Like nobody really knew I was using. I kind of wasn't aware that I was entering into like addiction territory. It was all like very like nuanced and weird for me. Like I kind of didn't understand what was happening until it was like much too late. Yeah.
Yeah, like it just snuck up on you. It tends to happen. I wanted to just like back up a little bit and, as much as you're comfortable sharing, like, so you had started using Xanax and then you had mentioned there was a sexual assault. Was this another student, like a friend?
Yeah. So the story is a little bit, so like trigger warning to anyone watching. I won't go too graphic into anything, but I was first assaulted by my boyfriend at the time, and who was a very like wealthy white student at my school. And people in our friend group knew, and everyone was just kind of like, don't say anything because there's no point, like nothing's going to happen. So there were a few assaults on that point. And then I ended up confiding in another male friend of mine about what was happening. And he was kind of like, maybe you should try to get out of that relationship. And so I broke up with my boyfriend. And then that student started assaulting me at that point. And this student had already assaulted multiple people. Like, he was kind of on the watch list, but no adults were doing anything. And so while this second friend of mine was assaulting me, my first boyfriend was stalking me and turning all of our friend group against me. And so I was in this really weird situation where, like, I was dependent on my friend to be kind of like protecting me from my ex-boyfriend, and yet he was my abuser at that point. And we were at boarding school, like there was no escape, kind of a small campus. Like, I'd walk around, like I'd see one of them, they'd pop out of nowhere. So it was like a really scary time for me, for sure. And so that's when my addiction skyrocketed. But I think it really got bad because I reported my first boyfriend for stalking me, and the administration like did nothing. And basically we're like, there's no evidence of this, like we can't do anything. And he ended up coming back around and assaulting me yet again. And that was like my breaking point. Ridiculous. I just like broke mentally. And that's when I ended up leaving school. But yeah, that was kind of my junior year in a nutshell, which is a little bit disturbing. Yeah.
Well, I mean, thank you for sharing. But I wanted to like tap into that because I mean, it does sound like that is like a place where, your substance use like really took hold, because I mean, you're 16 years old, and
it's a tough age anyways.
Yeah.
Like experiencing this assault, and not only, reaching out for help, and it just sounds like unanswered. I mean, that's frustrating for me.
Thanks
to
for being,
hear. Frustrating
is
a like frustrating is a it's more than frustrating, but
it was definitely ridiculous. Like it's weird for me to tell it back, because obviously like I've gone through a lot of therapy, like I've worked through a lot of my issues related to that. But yeah, it's always weird when I like tell people and they're like, oh my God. And I think, and I'm like, wow, like, yeah, that's kind of messed up. But that's definitely one addiction. And I think that's one of the misconceptions that a lot of people who aren't in recovery have about recovery in general. Like it's usually a co-occurring thing. Like people don't just decide that they're going to become addicts. Like there's other things in the background that like push that forward. And so I always think it's important to talk about like what led up to that. That's why I love like what you guys are doing with this podcast, because addiction isn't something that you just hop into lightly. Like it usually comes after a bunch of other really hard stuff as a coping mechanism. So, yeah. Yeah,
it's like a symptom of some other issue, circumstance, trauma. I mean, what is it? People are like, marijuana is a gateway drug, and I can't remember who it is, but it might be like a Brene Brown thing, but it's like trauma is the gateway.
Yeah. Sounds like Brene Brown.
Yeah. But yeah, I really appreciate you like allowing yourself to be vulnerable and share that. I mean, there's probably, other people listening to this that might have had similar experiences. And, so you said you weren't able to like get the help that you need or the protection around what was going on, but you ended up leaving that school. Was that basically just your only option to escape what was going on? Did you want to stay there, or did you all move, or how did that all play in?
So, I ended up, I think it was right before the end of my junior year that I ended up like having my breakdown. And I told one of my house counselors who brought it, she was the only one who like really believed in me as an adult figure. And so she kind of like broke the silence and was like, this isn't okay. Brought my mom into it. And we had to go through the whole like school disciplinary process, which is all BS, to be honest. But at that point, my mom was just kind of like, you're not going back. And that was hard for me because, I mean, I wanted to go back simply because like I had been through like 3 years of emotional hell at this school. I was like, I deserve to finish it out. But I ended up going to a different high school for my senior year, kind of like it was kind of a weird little school where it was like one-on-one. So at this point I was so traumatized, like I couldn't interact with people. It took me a while to like be a functioning human again. And I was still in like very active addiction and nobody knew. Because my PTSD was so severe that like at that point, like I couldn't even tell what was drug related hallucinations and what was just PTSD hallucinations. So I was like, in a very small school. Like I'd go to school for like 3 hours a day, like just get me out as quick as possible. But that's when things really started taking a turn for the worse in terms of like symptoms of my drug abuse. I was seeing things and hearing things and just like terrified for my life at every moment, at every turn. And that was kind of when I was like, maybe I need to go get some help for this. Yeah.
So it was after you went back to that school, or what, after you left that school, you transitioned into this other school. Mm-hmm. And this was all Xanax, or was it like other?
It was pretty much all Xanax. Wow. I was like very isolated from other people. So luckily, thank God, I didn't really have an opportunity to get other drugs from people, but so it was just like heavy Xanax use. Wow. By the time I checked myself in, it was like I was snorting like 9 milligrams a day. Just I don't even know how I was like alive, to be honest.
No, that's intense. I mean, there was a time I ditched class. Well, we like went to lunch. We had off-campus lunch in high school. And while we were at lunch, so I guess I didn't ditch class. Later I did. Later that day.
Off-campus lunch. You guys get to leave campus.
We got to leave campus, yeah, and like go to wherever.
Never heard that in my life.
Yeah, we're like in the parking lot at Burger King or something, and my friend had Xanax that she had swiped from her mom's medicine cabinet, and we like snorted it in the car, and like I blacked out after that, and I guess I went back to class late. I went into the cafeteria and I got like a hot chocolate and a cup of grapes, and I guess I was like spilling the grapes all over class. One of the gals that was with me at lunch was actually in this class, and then I guess I stood up at the end of it. I'm like completely blacked out. And I guess I stood up at the end of the class and I like announced to the class, I was like, do y'all remember when we were in the sauna? And like, then the bell rang, and then I got lost to my next class, my Spanish class.
You got lost in your school?
Yeah, I was like wandering around and couldn't find my class. Finally found it. I think the hall monitor guy like helped me get there. But the only reason I'm bringing this up is because it's like, that was like my one experience with Xanax, and it like totally wiped me out. Some friends called my, I don't know actually what happened, but I woke up the next day and I had those little stickies on my wrist and on my ankles. They had like the ambulance had to come to my mom's house and like hook me up to like heart monitors. My mom was pissed in the morning. She's like, what are you doing with your life? Because, you know, parents don't always know exactly how to handle these situations. I'm like, I don't know. I was just, but yeah, so I can only imagine like, the hallucinations from.
I was never into Xanax, but there was that meme on Facebook. Have you seen it? Where it's like the ultimate teleportation device.
I can see that.
I can see that. It's a picture of a guy like this, and then it's blank, and then in the next picture, he's in jail. It's like,
oh, right. Time traveling.
The ultimate time travel. I've never.
Gosh.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
that's
I heard the stories.
Yeah. No, that's intense. I mean, especially for like the people closest to you to really like not have any idea. But you mentioned it was getting so bad. It got to a point where it sounds like you just decided enough was enough. Like there was no other like outside. I mean, you're what, 17, 18, and you're like, I gotta do this different. And there's no outside like influence that's even recognizing what's going on.
Yeah, like it's kind of weird because talking about like Xanax as a kind of like a teleportation device like that, I don't really remember a lot from my junior year and like that kind of senior year. I ended up graduating from that little high school that I went to in like February of 2019. And so I was 18 at that point. And I just like, my life was like, it was like a weird movie that like, and like half of the frames were cut out. Like it was just kind of like bits and pieces. And I was living with my mom at this point because I'd come home from boarding school. And I was just like catatonic because I mean, I was so high all the time. I was like in another world. And then I was so dissociated from the PTSD stuff. And I think there was a trigger that led me to kind of go to my psychiatrist and be like, I need to go to rehab, because I kind of mentioned I was seeing things and that was really scary. But there was this one night in particular, probably in like January of 2019. This is like a year and a half into my addiction. And I was kind of like washing my face in the bathroom at night. And I looked into the mirror and it wasn't me who was staring back at me. Like it was a completely different person looking back at me, which scared the bejesus out of me. And then as I stared at this person, like her face started melting down. And I was just hallucinating like this person, like whose face was melting. And it was just like the most horrific moment of my life. And I couldn't tell, like, I was like, I don't even care if this is the drugs or if this is the PTSD, like something needs to change, because I started getting this feeling like I'm going to die. Like this person is warning me that I'm going to die if I don't get help. And so I literally like went out into the living room and was like, hey mom, I know you don't know this. I'm a drug addict and I need to go to rehab. And she was just like, what? And a month later, I was in rehab. So
I think it's good that you had an open line like that with your mom. I think obviously you felt a little bit of like, you know, your mom was supportive, because a lot of young people would never do that to their parents, or would be scared at what their parents' reaction would be. So kudos to mom for, it sounds like from what I'm hearing, a little bit of, she had some reception to some of the things you're going through and was ready to help you at that point in time.
Oh yeah, no, my mom, honestly, like I'm so blessed to have my mom. I love her to death. She has been with me every step of the way on this journey with like very little judgment. Like she is the most open-minded woman. She's a doctor. So like she understands on a medical level, like what was going on. And then she's really taken a lot of steps to.
Well, I don't know your mom's name, but we're going to give a shout out to mom.
Yes.
For being an ally. If your mom's listening, we love you. We need more people, more moms like you. And there was a lot of people struggling who are so afraid to come to family about the reaction. And there's a stigma with addiction. It's like, oh, you can, you know, you said it yourself. She's a doctor. She knows the science behind addiction. She knows the physical elements that it can cause. And so we need allies, and your mom is an ally. And so God bless her. And if you're listening, maybe you don't have addictions or use substance use disorders, but your son does, your daughter does, your bot, who knows? Be an ally and be receptive to those people, just much like Julia's mom. So anyway, just wanted to give your mom a shout out. And we need allies as much as we need each other.
Yeah, definitely. I wouldn't be here without her. And I know a lot of people wouldn't be here either without their allies in their life. So thank you to people like my mom.
Yeah. So to pick back up, sorry, Candace. I think Candace was asking you at this point, you're like, Mom, I need rehab. And so what was next? What was that experience like?
So I ended up talking to my psychiatrist, who I also hadn't really been honest with about any of my drug use. So I told her, she was like,
of course not.
Yeah. She's like, that's not good. We need to get you into rehab. So as soon as I graduated, in March of 2019, I went to a rehab called Sierra Tucson, which is in Arizona, for my 30-day residential stint. And it was amazing. I mean, like, withdrawal was really hard. I don't remember the first week because I was in detox, super sick, just like so sick. But obviously there's people there who are like watching you constantly and making sure I didn't have seizures. I was on seizure watch for a few days. Luckily didn't have any seizures. By the grace of God, no seizures.
You're 18 at this point?
I was 18. Yes.
Wow. So you made a conscious decision at 18 that you knew this is going to be getting worse and you knew to take action. You were cognitive at 18. I just think that's amazing. A lot of us wait till our 30s and 40s to say, I think I need some help, and no disrespect to those people, but power to you. So anyway, so you got there, you're detoxing. Please continue.
Yeah, I was detoxing, and I kind of like told my mom before I left, because I was also super depressed at this point, as a lot of people are. It's really hard mentally and emotionally to like check yourself into rehab. And I remember telling her, I was like, like if this doesn't work, like I'm gonna kill myself. Like that's where I was at, because I can't live like this. I'm either gonna die of while using, or I'm gonna like off myself in some way. Like this is my last resort. And I ended up telling them that when I was there. I was put on a bunch of different regimens, a lot of therapy constantly. And honestly, at the end of my 30 days, I was like, okay, like I think I can do this. Once I started addressing the PTSD, which was the main track that I was on, actually my substance track was second to my PTSD track, because they are really progressive in realizing that like there's always an underlying cause. So I started addressing a lot of the trauma that I had. And after I started really tackling that, like I didn't really feel the need to use anymore. It was kind of weird how like quick it happened for me. In the beginning, at least, while I was there, I was like, okay, like I can do this. I ended up going to a PHP to follow up. So I was in rehab for a total of like 3 months, and kind of like stepping down continuously. And I felt pretty good. But it's never like it never ends there. Like there's always follow up. And I actually ended up making the mistake of, after my 3 months, I decided that I wanted to go into some sort of service related job. And so I joined AmeriCorps and moved to Jacksonville, Florida, right out of rehab, and immediately was like, I need to go back. So I had
a shock. What was the shock? You think it was like you went from treatment inpatient to massive support, massive sisters or brothers you made? Mm-hmm. Well, I call them sisters, but people I've called really close I met in rehab. Yeah. So you went from like staff support to co-resident support to Jacksonville. Like, what was that like? Was it just kind of like overwhelming? Like, oh wow, I have nobody out here type of thing?
Yeah. So I chose a place where none of my family is in the South. So I don't know why I kind of went down there. So I was completely isolated from family, friends, like alone. Yeah. And then I started to realize like it's really hard to be 18 and in recovery and nobody understands what I'm going through. All my like support, like, and I consider the same, like my friends in rehab are like my brothers and sisters too. Like I'm still close with pretty much all of them, everyone who's been able to make it this far. And to go from that to nothing was totally overwhelming. And the world is like a scary place. I was still only 18 at this point. I didn't know anything about anything. I thought I knew everything, but I knew nothing.
Of course, you're 18.
Yeah, so I ended up, that didn't last very long. I was only there for 2 months. And then I ended up finding an IOP in Atlanta, and I moved to Atlanta and started getting more regular therapy, continuing the process of, when I'd have a craving come up, I had someone to talk to. Like,
we talk about that. We talk about that in YPR. We have workshops that we do, especially when it comes to housing and how coming from treatment or even either incarceration, there's this step down module where we don't want to go from one extreme into the next. And you just pretty much told us what didn't work for you. And I'm not saying that will happen to other people, but a lot of times it is what it is. And so we definitely have a track for that, from massive staff support, inpatient, to maybe stepping down to more little less independent living, but still have some type of structure, to maybe then from there an SLE, right? A sober living environment. And so you hit the nail on the head. It can be, I'm not saying everybody, I don't want to upset people, but it can be very divisive to go from that to that. And you're an example of that. So you go to Atlanta, the ATL.
Yeah. So, I mean, kind of to follow up on what you were just saying, though, I feel like I was the less than ideal rehab patient and that I did the opposite of everything that they told me to do. So they were like, go to sober living, Julia, this is what's going to help. And I was like, no, I'm going to move.
Oh, so they suggested sober living.
Yes, they did.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
and you're like, I'm going to Florida out of all states.
Yeah, I don't know. And then they said no rehab relationships, and I was in a rehab relationship for
of course you were.
A year and a half after, and
yes.
That's part of the reason I went to Florida. And
now it's coming out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, now it's coming out.
Okay.
Yeah. Don't do that, guys. I'll say that.
Yeah, there's some rehab stories that end well. I know some people got married, but I don't know that many few successful ones. You come into a program, you get about 30 days, you start to get all googly eyes at each other, and you think that's the one, right? That's the one for sure. That happened to me as well. We thought it was of God. It was just emotions and,
Yeah, we should talk about this for just a quick second because, so many people do that, whether it's like in treatment or just like going to like community support programs.
Man.
But it's like the amount of growth that we experience, like, especially within that first year of recovery, like, I mean, for lack of a better word, it's crazy to think that like the person that we are, 2-3 months into recovery is going to be anywhere near the same person that we are like 9-10 months later. It's astronomical how much people grow, in that first year. Like the fact, you mentioned, people that got married, like that blows my mind because I'm
very rare.
I mean, and it doesn't have to be, I don't know. It doesn't mean that like two people grow to a point where they have to like hate each other or something, but it's just like, I think we need to allow ourselves that space to like explore for so many of us, we started like using substances at a young age, whether it's, I was similar to you. I was about 11. Jesse, I think you were a pretty young teenager. Like a lot of us start like before we even really explored the concept of who we are. And then we find ourselves in recovery. And it's like, this whole like, who am I moment.
Even our maturity level was masked. Like our teen years are so much growth, but substances will definitely block those maturity years, man.
Yeah.
But
I think I hear it a lot where it's like, a lot of people think that they can like help each other, like support each other.
Yeah, you can't do that. And that's what I went into. I know now that like recovery it's a very individual process and it's unfair to both people if you're trying to do it like interlocked, you know what I mean? Because that was, a main issue for me is that when I got out of rehab, I've been sober from my drug of choice ever since. And I haven't touched Xanax, and that's been like, it's a point of, it's a really important thing in my life that I'm not going to use Xanax again. And my boyfriend at the time was just not on the same page. And that's often how it is because people are on their own tracks and you can't make somebody heal. Like, but just like if you can force someone to go to rehab, but they might get out and use 5 minutes later. Like it has to be a personal decision to do that. So I'd say to anyone listening who may be considering that, like, just focus on yourself and just live your own life because you can't make anyone do anything.
We have nothing to offer. I mean, for me, 30 days, 60 days, I can't even give myself, let alone provide myself for somebody else. I mean, this is a process. Yeah. And you're right. That is a suggestion. It's just a suggestion here at YPR Recovery Corner. But focus on you before jumping into a relationship straight out of rehab or an SLE. I'm not saying it doesn't work, but Candace says it. Julia says it based off our track records. It rarely works. I mean, and then you're back to square one. Then it ends up maybe in a relapse. Go ahead, Candace.
Well, I was going to say, like, I was in a relationship when I entered into recovery, and he was stable. Like, he didn't have issues, and ultimately, like, we grew apart and the relationship ended because we transformed. Like, recovery is transformative, and it was like nothing like he did or I did. It was just like, like, this is who I am, and we're not meant to be partners. And really grateful for the time I had him in my life. He was definitely a big support, but at the same time, like, I think that people just need to know. But it's hard because I think it's like one of those moments where you like want somebody in your life to support you so bad. You don't want to be alone. We spend years feeling like isolated and disconnected in our active addiction. And it's like that's level of a relationship.
That's crazy you said that. I'm the same thing happened to me. I stopped drinking, and I had this like expectation from my ex-wife, and she didn't, and I thought that's okay, but really the drink is something that we both had a common denominator, and she lost her drinking partner, man, right? So we still love her, wish her the best, and everything's it's all good, but man, I'll tell you what, usually when one person gets recovery, I'm not saying always, because I know people that have spouses that are that drink and do their thing, but usually from my personal experience, it rarely works, and sometimes it does. But she lost her drinking partner, and kind of just went downhill from there, and we realized the compatibility and the things in common weren't there anymore. So that same thing kind of happened for me as well. So ooh, that was a good left turn. I like that.
It's real, but I that's one of my favorite parts, like the transformation that happens and the opportunity to like really, I never believed like that whole line, like you can be whatever you want to be. And okay, so I'm not an astrophysicist, but no, that was never an aspiration, but like really like.
But you took Psych 300 for a semester. No,
no,
that was me. Sorry.
But it is like people in recovery, it is like we have this kind of like new lease on life, and an opportunity to kind of like, I don't want to say reinvent ourselves necessarily, but that is kind of what it is, either reinvent ourselves or just like discover ourselves for the first time, which kind of brings me to what I really am excited to talk to you about, kind of this like road into becoming a musician and artist. And I don't know how much of that was involved in your life, like prior to finding recovery, but when did your journey with music start?
I mean, I grew up playing instruments, so I feel like music has always been a pretty big part of my life. I played piano since like, I don't know, I started at like 4 or 5, and then I moved to cello and then saxophone, and I played saxophone for like 6 years. And that continued like while I was in Vietnam, like during my whole codeine trip, into up until high school. And then I kind of took a little bit of a hiatus from all music, while I was kind of going through my depressive phase, before my junior year. And I started singing when I was 16. So my sophomore year, I joined an a cappella group at my school, and that was like a big thing at my boarding school, like being in one of the a cappella groups. And that was like my life for 2 years when I was in high school, really important to me. And that kind of led me to start writing my own songs. And so singing hasn't like always been a thing. I was really afraid to sing publicly up until I was 16.
You say a cappella group, I just think of Glee, the show Glee.
Yeah, no, it's pretty similar, honestly. Like some people like thought we were super lame, but like at Northeast boarding school, it's like, oh my God, like you're in an a cappella group. Like, I don't know why it's so cool. I don't know. It was cool. It was super fun. But yeah, when I came home my senior year and I was kind of at that smaller school, I kind of mentioned I had like one-on-one lessons. I was like so dissociated the whole time, but I had a music teacher who was teaching me how to play piano. And so that kind of like led me to start writing my own songs on piano, which is something that I hadn't been able to do before because I was like relearning. I hadn't played since I was like a little kid. And I released an EP in like July of this year, and all of those songs were written during active addiction my senior year of high school. So it was like a big part of my life while I was going through that really hard time. And it's kind of been there since then. Yeah.
Wow.
Very nice. And when did you? Well, go ahead, Candace. Did you want to finish up with a second follow-up question?
Well, with that EP, so all of the records on that album, it sounds like you were going through a lot and not able to get the support you needed. And it sounds like music kind of became like that release for you. If I'm, correct me if I'm wrong, but like,
no, you're 100% right. And actually I kind of forgot to mention, I'm not a great storyteller. For someone who writes songs, I am like all over the place when I tell stories. But the first song I ever released was right after I came home from my junior year of high school, and it's called All the Girls Are Crazy. And it is about like my sexual assault and just sexual assault in general, and how, society treats women and girls who have been assaulted. So that was kind of like the beginning of me like advocating through my music, if that makes sense. I wasn't quite ready to like take full ownership of that until recently, since I've gotten a lot of help talking about it. But since then I kind of put my experiences into a lot of the music that I write, which is cool for me.
Yeah, it's a wonderful song. Yeah, I've been listening to the music that's available, and I love it all.
I have a question for her about the music. I have to know. So I was listening to Fallout. You have a recorded and you have a live. Is the tempo different?
In the live version? I think it's the same.
Okay. I was wondering.
The live version is like acoustic, so it's slower, I think.
Okay.
Yeah,
just had to ask. Yeah, super good song. Check out Fallout, by the way, if you're listening. Sorry, Candace, I had to ask her.
No, it's all good. I'm glad that you did.
Thank you for listening. Yeah. No, those songs are kind of weird because I was like hallucinating when I wrote all of them, and I wanted to create kind of like a jazzy universe where I could like talk about my crap relationships up until that point in a way that like wasn't so in your face. And so I kind of created, it's like a concept EP, like from the beginning of the end of a relationship all the way through to the healing part. And it's kind of a stylistically, like I wanted it to be kind of like whimsical and like not like how dark my life was at the time, if that makes sense.
You wanted to shine your light. You wanted to shine your light through your darkness.
Yeah, what's crazy is the best music is like, thank God, I don't take this the wrong way, but thank God that happened, because now you have a beautiful song, and it's just right. But some of the best music is from a dark place, and so you can feel that in your voice, and you can feel that in your songs and your bars. And I said bars like you're a rapper. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, no. Are you a rapper too?
Hear me rap? No. Oh my God, no. You didn't know.
You should do a rap / song.
We should have a rap battle.
You should have a chorus with you singing in a rap song. That would be pretty dope.
Yeah.
What up?
Just throwing it out there.
Macklemore.
What up, Macklemore? Oh, here we go. Julia Pratt.
You're all not
awesome. From Philly to Seattle. Let's go.
I think that'd be rad. Like 2 recovery powerhouses.
Come on.
All this like musical talent combine, like heads will explode.
Yeah, I definitely want to put her on.
Will drop.
Give her some links on the page too, some music, so people can check her out.
Yeah. We will get to that in a moment.
My bad.
No, it's all good. I just want to keep sitting here talking about music. But I know both Snoop Dogg and Dr. Dre's parts in Nothing But a G Thing.
Yes.
I will crush you in rap karaoke if you guys want to do it. That's like my favorite karaoke.
I just want to see that, so I'm in. That sounds amazing.
I want to see it. I have a few songs go-to for karaoke. Everyone has their go-to in karaoke.
Mm-hmm.
My dad's was Magic Carpet Ride. Close your eyes, girl. Look. I don't know. Julia's probably a little young for that, but it was Magic Carpet Ride. And then my song I always sang was Stained. what's that Stain song with Aaron Lewis? The one everybody knows. I can't
been
do
a
the
while.
name right now.
It's been
Been a while. Yeah. And I thought I was so cool, but really it was just the liquor that made me think I was good. And
dude, whatever. I full-fledged, like, karaoke has become one of my favorite, like,
pastimes
for activities. I love it. I love it so much.
Yeah.
I'm not, like, I don't know how to use my voice, but I love to perform.
We know.
It's awesome. Dude, yeah. It's, like, kind of, I don't know. Do you ever karaoke, Julia?
I do sometimes. I like to watch other people karaoke more than
it's not fair.
Karaoke.
You can't go behind Julia. Like if I'm at a bar, if I'm at a place like, doing karaoke, you can't be professional.
I like never know if I'm supposed to like actually sing or if I'm supposed to like, you know, like not actually
dull it down a little bit.
Like, you're showing off. I'm like, I'm not trying to. Like, I don't know.
No, there's some people that karaoke and they take it serious. Like if you're some karaoke nights where you better have pipes, they're like, what are you doing wasting our time? I don't go to those.
No, I go to the VFW for karaoke.
What's that?
Like I gotta look up what it stands for, but it's like a veterans post.
Nice.
They're great. They're just happy to see young people in there. They're like,
yeah. I have a good 90s rock alternative voice. I think like in Ted, remember every song in the 90s, it's like, you know, hey ho, hey, hey. It was very like really mumbled. Hey, 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 hey. All Pearl Jam / Creed, you know.
Oh, dude, Third Eye Blind. Those are my go-to karaoke dudes.
That was my first concert with Third Eye Blind.
What?
Yes.
Oh my god.
Oh you do. Yeah. You making me want you. I'm going back now. Oh my goodness. Semi-Charmed Life.
We know what we're doing in the next. Yeah, that's my favorite. It's kind of like a naughty song. So you like karaoke it, you're kind of like, oh, there's some things going on here.
It's a little naughty. You don't realize.
You need to go to a meeting. They probably need a
step back from that ledge. That was a good one. That was a.
Wish you song. Would step back from that ledge,
my friend. Yeah, you could cut ties for the lies that you've been living in. We're live. This is a live podcast. Not live, but this is recorded. We're going to be singing on it.
The people need to see this. Keep going.
I can't wait.
Yeah,
I would understand.
Right, I'm done. Well, anyways, let's get out of karaoke world. Sorry, I obviously love karaoke, and Jesse wants to love karaoke, so we'll make that happen
one day.
But
I'm red. You can't tell because I'm always red, but I'm redder than usual right now. You know, that's where we're at. That's where we're at today.
Oh, jeez.
Going forward.
Well, no, so the first EP, what was the name of that EP? That first Fallout. Okay, so that's the whole EP. So I was introduced to you and I don't know if that's not the right way to say it, but when I was introduced to you, your song Gold was shared to me. And so that was what really like turned me onto your music. That was the first song of yours that I heard, and it's beautiful. It's like, I mentioned in the beginning, enchanting. So this song, Gold, though, when did you write Gold? And tell us a little bit about this song.
Yeah, so I wrote Gold about a year ago. I think it was in like early November of last year. So I've been in recovery for quite a while at that point, like a year and a half. Not at all quite a while. Quite a while for me, a year and a half.
No, that's a long time. I feel like the earlier, it like seems like forever. Like the younger you are in it, which is kind of like age, I think too. It's like the older we get, like the faster time goes by. But
yeah, no, it definitely that feels like a world away, you know, going to rehab. But yeah, so I've been in recovery for a year and a half. And so I hadn't recorded the songs on Fallout yet, but they'd been written like a year ago at that point. And I had actually been talking to my mom that day. A lot of my songs start with conversations with my mom. She's just like she pulls stuff out of you. She's great to talk to. Wonderful lady. And I've been talking to her about nicotine because I was a nicotine addict for way longer than I smoked and vaped for like 3 years. And I quit in July of 2020. And so I was like, thank you. I was like 3 or 4 months clean from nicotine at that point. And I mean, nicotine was harder for me to kick than Xanax. Like, it was just like insane withdrawals for me. And so I was just talking to her anyway. Sorry, I'm such a crazy storyteller. I just talking to her about like how it had taken me so long to kick that habit. And she was like, you're really good at, kicking your addictions. And that statement was just kind of weird for me, because everyone who's in recovery, like, I don't know anyone who thinks of it that way. Like, I'm good at kicking an addiction, because obviously, like, it's really hard to stop using a substance that you're addicted to or dependent on. And so that's kind of where Gold was, like the inception of Gold. It was just like, how can I write about my experience with, overcoming addiction? And it's kind of like a conversation that I was having between like me, like my true self, and then like my sick drug dependent self, like feeling like I'm never going to be free of that side of myself. And maybe I don't have to be, but I have to learn how to coexist with like cravings and the memories of my addiction and all of that. And so I wrote Gold that day. And then when I went into the studio to record Fallout, like the whole EP, we finished it really quickly. So we had an extra day of studio time. And I was like, I actually have this other song that I think I'd want to record. And so we kind of tacked it onto the end. And we just released it on October 1st of this year. And yeah, it's exciting. It kind of represents a new era of my songwriting. I'm producing a lot more stuff myself, which is kind of cool, having more of a say in how I want it to be arranged. And yeah, I've just decided that I want to start writing about my experiences with addiction and mental illness, and kind of try to do my little part in destigmatizing that for anyone who decides to listen. So that's Gold.
That is gold. Still gold. Yeah. No,
Very
like
nice,
I just
Candace.
got.
Very nice.
I know. Sometimes I'm funny. No. No, I really like how you mentioned, this song being about learning to coexist with this other part of yourself, because I think that is a big part of it. Like with recovery, it's not like we just like move on. Like we don't just like, leave that there and walk away from it. Like it is like something that we can't just ignore and shut off. And it's not like we ever really live without it. It's something that we have to learn to live with. So I really like how you touched on that and how you were able to bring that into this song that I love.
Thank you.
Yeah, sorry. I'm like just gonna fangirl for a minute because it's so pretty. And you're like, if people choose to listen, I'm all, dude, if somebody gets it, like, here's your voice, like they're gonna listen. Like, so whether they like seek it out. I mean, it's like one of those voices and the sound of your music, just like, I think if people kind of get it, a whiff of it, lack of a better word, get a whiff of your whiff.
Get a whiff of it. That's the best promo I've heard of all time.
Come get a whiff of
it. Get a whiff of it.
An ear whiff, yeah.
Quick question. I got a quick question, Candace, for Julia Pratt. Do you have tracks that you get behind? Do you have a band that plays with you? Do you have a band now that you travel? You do little shows? I'm just intrigued.
No, I don't. So all of the musicians who played on Fallout were just session musicians who are all amazing, but I didn't bring them in personally. So yeah, I don't have a band.
How does that work? Now. You schedule with like these people?
Yeah, so when
they write the music for you? I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no. So I was working with my kind of co-collaborator. His name's Wolfie Johnson on Greg Wolfie, we call him Wolfie. Anyway, we were working with him, and he's based in Indiana, and so I actually went to Indiana to record the EP, and so he like knew the musicians and asked they're the session music. They're not just, that sounds, you know what I mean. They're session musicians who he brought in, all wonderful. And we had been sending kind of Logic files back and forth. And so we came up with the arrangement, and then the musicians like could play based off of that. So they kind of knew, like we all knew what we were getting into beforehand, but I met them for the first time while recording.
Okay. Man, and how was that process for you? This was like your first real studio time, or have you done it before a little bit?
Like a little bit when I was
But
younger.
not to this scale.
Yeah, definitely not to this scale.
No.
So that whole recording the EP, we had blocked out 4 days because there were 6 songs. And we did everything in the studio. So we had to re-record all the vocals, and there's a lot of background vocals on that EP. So it was just a lot of singing for like 4 straight days. But it was really fun. I mean, I love being in the studio. It's definitely something, I haven't been able to do it a lot, obviously, since COVID. That was the last time I was in the studio, but it's just fun. Like, I just like singing, honestly. So I do it now on my own. I set up a studio in my mom's closet. So that's how I make my demos now. But yeah, it was really fun. I mean, I loved it. Yeah.
Shout out to the good doctor for letting you use her closet.
She's a very gracious woman. I love her.
Yes. Amazing.
I love to sing too. I just don't have the pipes like that.
Shower singing. Candace does shower singing.
I don't know. I think sometimes when I'm practicing karaoke before I go to the show, I live in like a studio. There's neighbors on all sides. Sometimes I think that they're wondering what I'm doing. So I'm like, I've got to go from the belly, the diaphragm, really project my voice. My neighbors are probably I'm all third eye blind.
I sing from here. I sing from the nostrils, you know. And I can do a good country song too. I'm really good at the deep
Shania
country.
Twain. She's fun.
Yeah. Not so much that. More like I'd say like I can get you a little Garthy. I could do a little Garth. You know, Randy Travis, you know, I'm gonna love you forever. But Randy has that distinctive like that. I can't put my hand on it, but it's like a twine, if you will, you know.
Twang.
I don't know.
That's a good word. That's a good adjective.
Love You Forever. That's a good karaoke song.
Oh my gosh. You need to stop going down this karaoke thing.
We go karaoke. So your process now, Julia, now that we went off left field, thanks to you. Your process now, what is it you hope to accomplish? You know, through your music, obviously, you just want people to find connection, obviously, through music that you talked about. Do you want to get a band? Do you want to travel? Do you want to pursue this? Or is it right now just something you do for your own recovery and for people to enjoy? Or are you kind of up in the air? Can you kind of give us your direction?
Yeah, so I feel like for a long time I was like, I want to be a performing, touring artist and do all of that. But honestly, since I started going to Berkeley, like I didn't realize how many opportunities and jobs there were in the industry just as a whole. And so now as I'm learning more, I'm just like, maybe there's something else I want to do. I've had a few songwriting sessions, like writing for other people, which I love. I love writing for other people because I feel like I get to inject some of my thoughts into like their thoughts. And I'm like, oh, like maybe I can make this a song that like I would write, you know, about an issue that's important to me, but like help them come to terms with like what they want to say. It's, I think, a really special thing to help somebody like process through. And I'm also so nosy. Like I love hearing people's stories. I want to know all the drama in their lives. Yes. And so it's really fun to help people put that into words. So I definitely think I'll keep releasing music on my own because I like doing that. And now that everything can be done on my computer with the help of some of my friends, like I can just keep putting it out forever. But I think ultimately, I know I want to be able to incorporate writing for other people in a lot more. Yeah.
I think you could do it. I had the most interesting thing. I had to find a band recently, and it's hard. I was in charge of finding a band for Recovery Happens here at the Capitol in Sacramento. It's a large event. It's an annual event for people in recovery. We had like 60 vendors, 60 tents, all from all over the state of California. And I was in charge of like a lot of things, getting food trucks, getting a band. And man, I'll tell you what, she was amazing. It was a 90s cover alternative band. and just seeing their process. It was really fun. I'll have to send you guys some links. But like she has like that it thing, and then even listening to you, Julia, I don't say it lightly, but you have that. Your voice is just different. It's unique. And I know if you pursue this thing, it's going to get bigger. And I know that from the bottom of my heart. That isn't just because you're on the cast here. I really feel like you continue to do this and you're going to make a name for yourself. I know Candace agrees too. Because if you couldn't sing, Julia, I'd just tell you, you're all right. You're all right. But you're really good. And I really enjoyed it.
That really means a lot. Thank you so much.
Yeah. I mean, above karaoke. Above karaoke status.
Yeah, sorry. I think I just kept like getting into karaoke because I'm like, I want to feel connected to you. Like we share this bond where we both sing and perform.
I'm gonna karaoke Julia's song. I'm gonna be like, look this up in the.
Oh my God! Please do, and then send me a video.
I will. I'm gonna sing.
Well, next life ambition is karaoke. Jesse Karaoke's Gold.
Jesse Karaoke by Julia.
I'm gonna
I'll do it right after Magic Carpet Ride.
Yeah, do that one first.
After I crush Nothing But a G
But
thing.
I blind. Nothing But a G thing.
I want to say that as well.
Because it's the capital S O S impression double O P D O double G Y D O double G U C.
Straight out Durango. We should do a karaoke pro social. We should collab, Candace.
Yeah.
Please do.
I'm down.
You're invited.
Zoom pro social karaoke event. It's going.
All right, you guys.
Go ahead, Candace.
Wait, Julia was going to say something. And
I said I want a link to your Zoom.
Oh, yeah.
No, you can't come, Julia. You can't come. I'm not following that up.
Oh, goodness. We're getting kind of low on time, and there was a couple other things I wanted to touch on. But mainly, can we expect to see do you have anything on the horizon, like more music that's going to be available soon, or is that like in production?
Yeah, so I have a song. I don't know when this is going to air. You said like January, maybe?
January, February, something like that. I got to look at the calendar. Yeah, it's going to be in the heart of winter. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Depending on when this comes out, it may already be released, but I have a song called Tried and True. That's my next one that's coming out. That is produced by me and one of my friends who actually ended up, he engineered the Fallout sessions. I didn't know him before then, but we became really good friends. Yeah, and he's like so awesome. So we work together now, and we're releasing this song, and it is all about like the lowest point, I guess. It's kind of a follow-up on Gold. A lot of harmonies, pretty cool. I'm really excited for it to be out, just to kind of continue the mental illness conversation and continue to say my piece on that. So that hopefully will be out around the time that this episode airs. So if it is, go check it out.
No. Fantastic. That could time out perfectly. Well, yeah, so that was something I wanted to ask you about. And I'll look for that, and I'll be excited. And we'll get some other information from you here in a minute about where people can find your music. But the big question I want to ask, that it's our signature question. Julia, what does recovery mean to you?
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah, it is a big question. I think that I've been thinking about it for a few days now, and I think that recovery to me just means every day trying to be as compassionate with yourself as you can be. I think one of the great things about young people in recovery is that it's really hard to be young and in recovery. And it was really hard for me being in treatment and people saying like, you know, you can never drink again, or you can never do this again, or, you know, and there's a lot of pressure in that statement, you know, if you're like 18 or 20 or 25 or whatever, and it's like, I can like never, I'm committing to never do something again. Like that's what leads to relapse for a lot of people in my experience. And it's a really overwhelming prospect. So I like thinking about recovery is just like some days you're going to be feeling great and it's like I can conquer the world and I don't need to use again. I'm not even craving anything. I'm feeling great. And then other days, like your best could just be I got up, took a shower, and I didn't use, or I existed today and laid in bed, and that's okay. And it's kind of, it might sound a little bit cliche to say that, but it's so true. Like every day is a time to be compassionate with yourself and compassionate with other people. Like this community only survives as long as we are gracious with ourselves and with other people and understanding and compassionate. And realizing that not every day is going to be as great as the last, and like that's just life, but it doesn't mean that tomorrow is going to suck. And then also not defining yourself by the lowest points in your life. Defining yourself by the values that you live by is really important. So that, I feel like that's what I'd say recovery means to me.
That was amazing.
Terrific answer. No, and like so thoughtful. I love that. Just being so
like what you said, Candace, about sometimes it's okay to just exist that day. And some people were like, oh man, I went through a depression day, or that's okay. We have to get rid of this like thing that like, no, every day has to be awesome, right? No, it's okay to not be okay.
Right.
And so Julia Pratt, 21 going on 60 with her wisdom and knowledge.
Yeah.
I say it because we need to remind ourselves. I have plenty of days where I am like a complete and utter emotional mess and I'm super depressed. So I need to remind myself too, and that's okay. It's all right to be low, but you're here for a reason and you're doing great.
Awesome.
Oh, yeah. Well, great answer. What was it? Oh, I just wanted to touch on that too. Yeah. I think I'm not like in any traditional programs, but I do definitely agree that like we don't need to worry about what the rest of our lives looks like. Like when it comes to recovery, it's like just get through today, one day at a time. And then, the days stack up and before you know it, you're crushing it. But terrific story, Julia. Thank you so much for, being vulnerable, sharing some of those like hardships you went through. And thank you for putting all that kind of like pain into music that we can now enjoy. That's so beautiful. I think you and I talked a little bit about that when we met a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
Just how sometimes some of those really like painful events can, create some of the most beautiful art. And I think that you are a testament to that, you and your music. So thank you for that. And thank you for being on the show today. I definitely look forward to like staying in touch and watching your like continued growth and development. And when you're all like big time, you got to come back to the show.
No, we'll do a round two.
We should do a follow-up.
We'll ignore karaoke though. Like we'll just leave it.
No, that's how we have to open the episode. With both of you singing karaoke. And then
we'll karaoke one of your songs. We'll be like, welcome to recovery. Well, you're not.
You can sing our promo. Recovery corner. Something else.
I thought I'd love that. No, thank you guys so much for having me. This has been awesome. And I appreciate everything that you guys are doing. You really are amazing people. This is such a great podcast. Just
come on
for your work.
Shout out to Philly. I know you're in LA now or San Diego. We will release you back to the East Coast. I allow it. And you're going to do big things in Philly. Again, 21 years old. Super awesome. Shout out to all those young people. It is possible. It can be done. It can be achieved, and you're doing it. But before we close, Julia Pratt, tell us, and those listening and those watching, if you want to like platform anybody else, maybe an agency that you're near to in California or Philly or maybe wherever, go ahead and use this time. Tell people if you want to follow, find your music on Instagram or your whatever, any platform you want to expose yourself to, or any shout outs you want to give out right now.
Yeah. I guess you can find me on pretty much any platform you listen to music on at Julia Pratt. And then the only social media I really know how to use is Instagram. So you can find me at Julia Pratt Music. And I guess shout outs. I think the biggest one goes to my mother.
Hey.
I love you very much. And she is the reason why all this music exists. So I appreciate her. Yeah.
Come on.
Oh, that's
and then
beautiful.
that was for your Instagram, you said?
Yes.
Wonderful.
Julia Pratt Music. All
Perfect.
one word.
Perfect.
All
Well, Julia Pratt, thank you so much. We appreciate you. What a good podcast. Good laughs. It was just really excellent. Once again, guys, thank you so much. We are your host. I am Jesse Hayner.
And I am Candace Rose. And I was just going to mention too, specifically, I've been listening to Julia on Amazon Prime. I know she's also on Spotify. And you said all the platforms, but I at least wanted to plug a couple where I've been able to find you.
Perfect.
But yeah, check her out. So very cool. Thank you again. And for all of our listeners, new episodes are available to stream every other Wednesday as early as 5 a.m. Eastern time. So be sure to tune in next time. As always, here at YPR, we do recover and we are in your corner. Thanks for listening.